for tuning in to TCT today. You know, it's been said there's no testimony without a test. Has God brought you through a difficult challenge or test in your life? Are you sharing that testimony with others? Well, stay where you are. The assistant pastor of Strongsville Christian Church in Strongsville, Ohio, Pastor Frederick is here to share his amazing testimony, how God has transformed his life. You don't want to miss that. Well, stay right where you are. When we come back, I'll be joined by Pastor Frederick. My guest today is the assistant pastor of Strongsville Christian Church in Strongsville, Ohio. Please welcome Pastor Frederick. How are you doing?
Very good. How are you today?
Good. Well, thank you for being here. For those that don't know, I know you're an assistant pastor at a church that most of our viewers will know, Strongsville Christian Church. Pastor Joseph Collini's in the audience with us today, a regular on Ask the Pastor, been a part of it. So you've been coming around the station here for a while, and you have a testimony to share. And so before we get into when you gave your life to Christ and what you're doing now, tell us a little bit about your testimony. Where did you come from?
Well, I grew up on the east side of Cleveland. I've lived in different hoods, different projects. And one thing that I always say, that there is no excuse, there's no reason that justifies not being who God called you to be. Because in my life, what I found out is that the influence, the power of God is infinitely greater than any influence of this world, any influence of a situation that you may find yourselves in, and ultimately any influence that the enemy, the devil, has had on people. The power of God is infinitely greater.
Well, that is great. That's something a lot of people need to hear, because the devil will often trick us into kind of making these excuses on why I can't live the life that God has called me to live. And so what was your, I know you haven't always lived for Jesus, so what was your life like before you really came to that knowledge that despite circumstances, you can live your greatest life through Jesus?
Yeah, well, I experienced a lot in my life, and I've lived through extreme poverty. So when I was growing up, there wasn't a whole lot of money at all. I lived in times where there was rats and mice everywhere, where there was bed bugs in my home. I lived where I hardly had clothes, where I didn't know where my next meal was coming from. And I kind of grew up in the church, so I knew about God. But what really caused me to give my life to him was really finding out just how real he was. And that was honestly through the deepest pain in my life. I had already lost my father when I was 6 years old. He was murdered. So someone had shot him 6 times in his chest. And I didn't understand that, but the biggest pain from that was not even mainly that he died when I was 6. It was really that I didn't know him. I never really got to know him. He was in and out of prison all the time. So I never got to know who my father was. So it didn't have the same effect on me as when my mother died. When my mother passed away, that is what really devastated me and caused me to know God and that he was real, just how real he is, because I knew of him. But this is when I got a relationship with him. And the difference between my father and my mother, well, my father, like I said, he wasn't in my life. My mother, however, she was my backbone. She was my support. She was everything for me. And when I saw her pass out, this was the first time I found out that she had brain cancer, because we were in the middle of our home. She passed out. She hit her head on a dresser. She was bleeding from her head. She was foaming at the mouth. She was having a seizure. Me being as young as I was, I didn't even know what a seizure was. So in my view, I thought she was dead. So now I'm feeling hopeless. And then I would say about 10 minutes later, she comes to, and now she's conscious again, and she has no idea what even happened. And that was just the beginning of her struggle. And what really hit me differently was my father. I knew the lifestyle he lived. He was a gangster. But my mother, she was a woman of God. So for me, it was harder to understand why she was going through what she was. She had 6 children, and yet she was hit with this brain cancer. She had a brain tumor in her head the size of a golf ball that was pushing her brain all the way to one side of her head. It caused her to lose all mobility, and I watched her go from this strong, beautiful woman that took care of me, that nurtured me, that cooked for me every day, and now she reverted back to the state of a child where she couldn't no longer speak, she couldn't hardly move, and any movement she did do, it would cause her great pain. But what influenced me was her attitude. You wouldn't believe that throughout all of the pain, all the suffering that she had, she would always praise God. She would always tell me that God was still good. She would always still have a smile on her face. And I didn't understand, how could God be good when you're literally dying and you're leaving 6 children behind? And at one point I had to stop trying to figure out why it happened, because that wasn't going to solve my problem. My problem was the pain. You know, that led me into a deep depression where I had thoughts of suicide constantly. I wanted to take my own life. I even attempted taking my own life. I fell into drug addiction. I was addicted to marijuana, so many things. But no matter what happened in my life, God was always there for me. I just didn't know it yet. But through that pain, I cried out to him because it was unbearable. I was up every night. I could not sleep. I was calling my mother, her cell phone. Even though she was dead, I was calling her phone every single night, trying to see if maybe she would answer me. And eventually I got tired of that pain. I got tired of the same stuff over and over again. And I said, God, I want a relationship with you. I don't want to just hear about you. I don't want to just be told I should follow you. I want to hear from you myself. And I cried out to God. I got on my knees. I told him, Lord, I need you to heal me. I'm tired of this pain. I give my life to you. I repented of my sins. And when I accepted Jesus, I'm telling you, instantly, it didn't take a long time. Instantly, all the pain that I felt, all the suicidal thoughts, everything that I was feeling, it was lifted off of me in one instant. And from that moment, I knew that God was not just a man in a book. I knew that he was real and that he loved me and that now I can have a relationship with him.
Wow, that's powerful. Now, there's a lot of people that may be going through that same thing. Maybe the circumstances are different, but they're in that place just like you were, of feeling depression, suicidal thoughts, doubting if God was real, or how could he be a good God if all this is happening around us. And yet you cried out to God in that moment. And knew he was real. I know you've come out of that place. What would you say is an encouraging word to someone that might be where you were?
Well, I say again, the power of God is infinitely greater than any influence of this world. And the reason I know that is because if you look at where I grew up, it makes no sense that I am where I am today, because I grew up around thugs. I grew up around gang violence where there were shootings all the time. I grew up around most of the people that I know that I grew up with and I went to school with. They're either dead or they're in prison. And I've watched my mother get beat violently right in front of me time and time again, yet I did not become a woman beater. I've been molested even as a child, as a young child, yet I did not become a child abuser. And all of that to say that all of the demonic influences that were surrounded all around me, yes, it had an effect. Yes, it took a toll. But when I gave my life to God, none of it mattered. So it doesn't matter how long you've been in anything. It does not matter what struggle you're going through. It does not matter what hardship you experience growing up, what trauma it is. When you put your trust in God, he has the power to overcome all of that, because we are more than conquerors through him.
Wow, Frederick, well, that is a tremendous testimony. Thank you for taking the time to share with us today, and God bless you in your ministry.
God bless you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I want you to know that if you need prayer, our prayer partners are standing by, ready to pray for you. You may be going through something, and you're in the same place Frederick was, of where is God in all this? How can he be a good God? But I want you to know that he is. He loves you. He cares for you. We do too. We want to pray for you. So call that number on your screen, 1-800-232-9855. In just a few moments on the program, we're going to be praying for you. But first, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Judge is going to be back with an inspirational moment.